Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're actually talking about the advantages and disadvantages of getting married in community of property. And yeah, has been a topic that has been popping up from a lot of you, and I thought, why not actually discuss it today? So while marriage can be a beautiful, union between two loving spouses, it does have its advantages and disadvantages, especially if you are married in community of property. And I personally would say getting married in community of property is actually the biggest mistake that you could ever make in your entire life. And here's why. So basically, there are three matrimonial property regimes in South Africa. We have your marriage by default in community of property. We have out of community of property with the exclusion of the accrual system. And lastly, we have out of community of property with the inclusion of the accrual system. So basically, if you have not signed any contract and you have went straight to Home Affairs to get married, register your marriage, then you are married in community of property. The first advantage of actually getting married in community of property is that sometimes it can actually help you with financial stability or financial access to the world out there. A perfect example would be if you want to purchase immovable property and you cannot afford a loan. If you are married in community, they often want the other spouse to co-sign so that the two of you are co-owners of the property. So it actually eliminates that thing that you can't actually afford property alone, and you can actually co-sign your other spouse. It also creates a bond of togetherness where the two of you actually do things together and you feel that you are inseparable and you know of each other's transactions. And it's beautiful because the two of you are in it together, in it for the good and the bad. But actually it is the bad that is more than the good if you are married in community of property. And here's why. Alright, so the first disadvantage of getting married in community of property is that if the other person is irresponsible, especially in terms of finances, that can lead the two of you to an application for debt review, insolvency, bad credit records, being blacklisted. Yes, so that is actually when it hits home that actually getting married in community of property is actually a bad idea. When you are applying for debt review and you are married in community of property, the other spouse has to sign the document so that he or she can also be in debt review with you. It cannot happen that you are on debt review alone. It doesn't work that way. So basically the two of you are considered one person, one individual with a joint estate. So you cannot do things aside on your own, leaving the other spouse. Also, you cannot pick and choose that, okay, I will take the fall and you won't. The two of you actually go down together. Yes, that's the sad part of actually getting married in community of property. And the other disadvantage is that there are some, hear me out, some contractual transactions that you cannot enter into alone. They actually need your other spouse to sign. So actually, if you wanted to do your own thing and be your own person but married at the same time, thinking that you can enter into certain transactions on your own, think again. That can never ever happen. And this often happens to couples who have separated for a long time, and they actually go to the bank and now they want to actually enter into a certain transaction with the bank, and the bank says, okay, hold on, please call your other spouse. And you find that these people have been separated for plus minus 10 years, 5 years, and now they cannot do or they cannot move on with their lives because they have this thing with them. Basically, it's like a baggage with them. All right, and also another third disadvantage is that the management of the joint estate is actually very difficult, especially if the two of you are going through a divorce. Yes, so managing the estate on its own is very difficult if you're married in community of property. When parties are divorcing, Other people, they say, look, I bought the house, I bought the car, I bought the furniture, and what he did was buy groceries and pay school fees. So actually, I do not think that he deserves the house or he deserves my cars. You are married in community. It's a joint estate. So you cannot choose, or you cannot say that certain things are yours because you bought them and paid for them yourself. By virtue of your marriage, you are basically saying, I'm buying this house for the two of us, and we will share in its profits and we will share in its losses. So there is no such thing as I bought this alone, okay, and oh, he took out that loan and used the money alone. It doesn't work that way. Because of your marriage, by virtue of your marriage, both of you, it belongs to the both of you. The debt belongs to the both of you. The assets belong to the both of you. Speaking about assets, even fortune. So if the other spouse is actually quite richer than the other, it doesn't matter. The other spouse is actually entitled to 50% of that fortune. So if you win the lotto, or somebody makes a huge donation, or you get this significant or this very big inheritance, the other spouse has a 50% share of it all. It works like that. Unlike getting married out of community of property, where there are certain exclusions that do not apply to the marriage. And for you to know those exclusions, you will have to consult with your legal representative. Yes, guys, so going through a divorce is actually very, very difficult for parties married in community, especially if they cannot agree or come to an agreement regarding the terms and conditions, or the terms actually of the divorce. Other people, they tend not to settle. Others, they actually run with the contestation. The divorce becomes contested until the court makes the final decision. Remember, guys, that courts cannot set the terms of the divorce decree if you are married in community or property. Do not think that because you paid for the house alone, you will convince the court to actually grant the house to you. The court cannot separate the assets for you. Hence, you have to enter into a settlement agreement. What the court normally does is grant division of the joint estate, meaning that everything has to be sold and the proceeds divided equally between the two of you. If there's a surplus, the two of you will divide that surplus. If there is a deficit, the two of you will divide that deficit amongst the two of you. So it will be 50-50, whether the other spouse is working or not. So other people tend to say, look, I'll fight for this house. Generally, it's very difficult, and your attorney has to argue what we call forfeiture of benefits in community of property, and you have to thoroughly convince the court that you deserve forfeiture, that forfeiture should be granted in your favor. Otherwise, it is a very, very difficult. Scenarios are actually quite different when it comes to forfeiture of benefits in community of property. One crazy example that I would make is if you are a 20-year-old and you are marrying an 80-year-old. You actually just marry this person in community of property, then 2 days later you want to divorce. And this 80-year-old has assets, is rich, extremely rich, and after 2 days you want to divorce. So there are so many grounds where the 80-year-old can actually argue forfeiture of benefits forfeiture of the benefits in community of property. Look, you only married me for 2 days and we're married in community. Basically, you did not have good intentions when you married me. Okay, so you want half of everything that I have just because of virtue of our marriage, and we've been married for only 2 days. So do you get the hang of it, that you have to argue such things, that it was only 2 days, she is or he is 20 years old, I'm 80, I'm about to die anytime soon, all of those things. This person actually came into the marriage to misrepresent himself, basically to gain something, to be unduly benefited. So you actually have to have good grounds to qualify for forfeiture of benefits in community of property. It's not easy, guys. It is not easy. Couples go in, they're arguing for forfeiture, and they've been married for plus 20, 30, 40 years. And it's quite difficult. It is really quite difficult. Remember, when you took your vows, you said for the good and the bad. And that is why generally courts just grant division of the joint estate. Everything has to be sold, especially if the two of you can't enter into a settlement agreement. Now, let's say the court has granted you your divorce decree with a settlement agreement or without, and the two of you still can't agree. For example, if the house has to be sold, the other spouse does not want to sign the papers, then you have to go back to court to apply, basically make an application for the appointment of a liquidator and receiver of revenue. That person will then step into your shoes and sign whatever has to be signed. And guys, liquidators also do not come cheap. You have to pay them for their services, and you actually have to appoint one. The court doesn't grant or appoint one for you. You actually have to go out there and find your own liquidator and receiver of revenue, and the court will only grant an order that such a person must be a liquidator and receiver of revenue for the joint estate of Mr. Simpson and Mr. Simpson. Okay, so even after divorce, it tends to be very difficult. And these are the things that happen generally to couples who are married in community of property. And, you know, at the end of the marriage, they become their worst enemies. It's no lie, no shade. You guys become your worst enemy, especially if you co-own things together. It is generally very easy to dissolve marriages out of community of property without the accrual system. Basically, you leave with what you came with. So those ones are generally very easy to dissolve unless the two of you bought property together. Tends to be very difficult. So yes, guys, those are the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages of getting married in community or property. I hope you have learned something here today. Please do subscribe if you have not subscribed to this channel. Hit the like button and share this video if you care. Also, please drop a comment below on what topics you would like me to cover, and I promise you guys I will try to be consistent, seeing that it's December time, but I am still working. But you know, December is not like, you know, the months during the year where you are exceptionally busy. So yes, guys, and thank you to those who have subscribed, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video.